Command, I have a scanner refusing to classify an item at stall 41.
Probably a fault. Reboot it.
I already did, twice.
Officer Threll Van had scanned assault cruisers, plague vectors, and one sentient minefield without his hands shaking. They shook now, watching a human hum an off-key tune while polishing a length of ancient blued metal like it was a garden hoe. The wood and steel thing lay across the human's knees, unremarkable to every eye in the docking bay except the scanner clipped to Threll's collar, which had just refused, for the third time, to give him a reading. "Sir," Threll said into his comm, keeping his voice level the way the training Holos always insisted was possible. "I need you to look at something. It's probably nothing." 90 meters away, at stall 41 of the Cathrasi Way Station's used goods market, I was doing what I always did on a slow trade day, trying to get rid of my grandfather's old deer rifle before my truck's transmission finally gave up the ghost for good. It wasn't much to look at. Walnut stock gone dark with 60 years of hand oil, a bolt action that stuck a little in humid weather, a barrel my grandpa used to say, shot straighter than most men's excuses. I wasn't attached to it, not really, I just needed the parts money, and some collector on the station had been asking around for pre-industrial earth hand cannons, whatever that meant. Seemed like easy credits. I gave the stock one more wipe with my sleeve and set it on the folding table between a broken toaster and a box of mismatched bolts. That was the whole plan. Sell the rifle, fix the truck, go home. Threll's scanner disagreed. The first pass had returned nothing but static, which normally meant a malfunctioning unit, so he'd run it twice more. Each time, the device spat out the same 3 characters and then simply stopped, as if it had thought better of finishing the sentence. Threll had never seen a scanner refuse to commit to an answer before. He called it in as an equipment fault. He was almost sure that's all it was. Dr. Ilse Kor arrived 11 minutes later with a portable analyzer twice the size of Threll's handheld, muttering about wasted lunch breaks, and knelt beside the stall with the weary patience of someone who has debunked 100 false alarms and expects this to be the 101st. Her patience lasted about 4 seconds. "The metal's a laminate," she said slowly, running the analyzer along the barrel without touching it. "Manually forged. No printed lattice, no molecular reinforcement, no computer ever touched this design." She looked up at Threll. "It shouldn't be able to survive its own firing cycle. But it does? According to the stress fractures, which there aren't any of, yes." She asked Threll to confirm the numbers. He did. She asked him to confirm them again. He did that too, and neither of them liked the answer any better the second time. The muzzle velocity estimate, based on chamber pressure and barrel length alone, was high enough that Kor initially assumed a decimal error, then checked her own math 3 times to make sure it wasn't. What she got instead was a number that belonged on a warship's rail battery, not a stick a soft-bodied primate was currently resting her boots on. "It's not powered," she said, mostly to herself. "There's no power source. It's just springs and chemistry." Threll asked the question neither of them wanted to answer aloud. How does something with no reactor hit numbers like that? Nobody answered him for a long moment, and that silence bothered him more than any answer could have. Threll ran a discreet search of his own while they waited for backup, mostly to settle his own nerves. He typed in hand-forged human projectile weapon, no power source, 60 years old, and expected the database to return nothing, or a museum entry, or some reassuring line about ceremonial replicas. Instead, it returned 400,000 results, sorted by manufacturer, and kept going when he scrolled. He closed the search. He did not feel settled. Word travels fast on a station with nothing else to do, and by the time Commander Dasik Moore arrived at the market deck, a small, unofficial perimeter of very interested Voxhari personnel had already formed at a respectful, unspoken distance from stall 41. Dasik had commanded the cruiser Ashfall Vigil through the perimeter wars, had ordered strikes on shielded moons, and did not enjoy being summoned to a swap meet. He enjoyed it less once Kor handed him the readout. "This is a hunting implement," he said, reading it twice. "For killing 4-legged herbivores. On purpose. For food. Recreationally, according to the human," Threll offered. She also mentioned she inherited it. "From a relative who is not a soldier." "Correct. A grandparent." Dasik looked over at stall 41, where I had just accepted a lowball offer on the toaster, and was now trying to explain to a very confused Voxhari customer that no, the box of bolts didn't come with the toaster. That was a separate item. It looks like a fence post, Dasik said. The scanner does not care what it looks like, Core said. It cares what it does to armor plating at 400 meters. I ran that simulation twice, Commander. I would like to be wrong about the second result more than I have wanted anything in my professional life. And are you?
No.
What finally broke the room wasn't the velocity number. It was the ammunition. Core had assumed, reasonably, that whatever unregulated propellant fed this device would be rare, difficult to synthesize, tightly restricted somewhere in the human supply chain. She ran the query anyway, out of thoroughness, more than expectation. The answer came back listing 3 ingredients any Voxhari chemistry student could combine in an afternoon, using materials sold openly in 6 different shops on this station alone. It's not restricted, she said. It's not even expensive. How many of these does the species make? Dasik asked. Threll, who had pulled the answer while the others were still absorbing the ammunition problem, didn't want to say the number out loud.
He said it anyway.
The figure he gave wasn't a military stockpile. It wasn't even close to their entire domestic arms production. It was, according to the Human Trade Registry, roughly how many similar hunting implements existed in a single one of Earth's smaller nations, the kind used for putting food on a table, not winning a war. That's one country, Threll clarified, in case anyone had missed it. There are dozens of countries, some of them larger. Core did the math out loud, because someone had to. The number Threll gave, multiplied even conservatively across the rest of the planet, dwarfed the standing armory of the entire Voxhari Dominion, every garrison, every orbital depot, every mothballed reserve stockpile combined, and that was before anyone accounted for the ones kept simply for sport, or nostalgia, or, apparently, resale. Nobody said anything for a moment. And this one, Dasik said, nodding at the stall, considers hers outdated. She is selling it because she wants a newer truck. Core made a small sound that wasn't quite a laugh. There's more, she said, and Dasik closed his eyes briefly before telling her to continue. The design is 60 years old, by her own account. Obsolete even by human standards. I asked the registry what an unmodified civilian could purchase today, with no license beyond a background check. And faster, lighter, chambered for worse. The classification came through Core's analyzer 12 seconds later, stamped in the particular shade of red the Voxhari Armaments Council reserved for exactly 4 other objects in the galaxy, 3 of which were currently under permanent orbital quarantine. Class 5 Alpha, Strategic Threat Designation. The other 3 objects sharing that designation, Threll knew from mandatory briefings, were a derelict superweapon from the Cetrian collapse, a stellar drift mine still unaccounted for since the Perimeter Wars, and something the Council's files simply called the Calvus Incident, redacted past even his clearance. He had always pictured Class 5 Alpha as something enormous. Nobody had prepared him for it to be small enough to lean against a folding table next to a toaster. Core read it out loud once, quietly, then looked at the toaster still sitting 6 inches from the barrel like it was the most natural neighbor in the world. She has it next to kitchen appliances, she said. Dasik didn't respond right away. When he did, his voice had lost its command-X steadiness entirely. Get eyes on every stall selling antique earth tools on the station.
Now.
Quietly. I want to count before she finishes her lunch break. Threll hesitated. Sir, should we approach her? Detain the item? Dasik looked at me one more time, at the woman idly rearranging a box of bolts while a device capable of gutting a shuttle's hull plating sat 6 inches from her elbow, unguarded, unshielded, entirely unremarkable to her, and made the only call that made any sense.
No. Buy it.
Quietly, and for a very generous price. I do not want her to think twice about where the rest of them are. I did not, in fact, notice any of this happening, mostly because I was 30 feet away arguing with a Voxhari trader over whether my vintage tactical scope, actually a cracked pair of binoculars, counted as a weapon accessory or a household good, a debate that felt very important at the time and in retrospect was not. Eventually the rifle sold, to a nervous-looking Voxhari buyer who paid almost double my asking price and then left so fast he forgot his own scanner on my table, which I had to jog after him to return. Man seemed jumpy. I told the guy at the toaster stall next to mine. Guess some people just really love antiques. He agreed that people were strange, and we went back to haggling over a box of assorted bolts, because that's the kind of afternoon it had been. I never did figure out why half the market deck went quiet for about 10 minutes right around then, or why 3 different security officers photographed my empty folding table after I packed up, or why, a week later, a very polite customs notice arrived informing me that recreational projectile devices of pre-industrial Earth manufacture were now restricted to bonded storage pending further council review. I just figured space bureaucracy moved in mysterious ways. Filed the notice under things I'd deal with later, right next to my taxes. Got the truck's transmission fixed, though. Grandpa would have liked that. He always said that old rifle was good for one more sale before it finally kicked its last. He had no idea how right he was, and neither, for the record, did I. Still got Grandma's old kitchen cleaver in a box back home, if that customs office ever wants to lose their minds again.